Hello, hello. So for this installment, I will be showing you my complete collection of the Precode run of Adventures into the Unknown. Normally I might play some music in the background and not talk, but I think today I'm going to do a little talking, and here's why. For one, if you don't know, Adventures into the Unknown is the first ongoing continuous horror comic title. Started in 1948, and it ran for 61 Precode issues, making it the longest running Precode horror title. And so for a completionist like myself, or completist, whatever you want to call us, in terms of Precode horror, there's basically no greater accomplishment than finishing this 61 issue run. And I started in probably 1993. We'll get on to that a little bit later, but Adventures into the Unknown was my very first Precode horror book, and I'll show you the one I got later on. So without further ado, let's start flipping through the books. Some of these are still in their original bags that I bought, and I kept like labels on there just for, giggles. Obviously, number one is a key book, and even back in the day, I could not afford a high-grade copy. But you see, this copy here, I could probably not afford these days either. But back in the day, $25 I paid for this. Yeah, those days are gone. Here's number two. And, I always felt like the first 20 or so covers on this run are just pretty outstanding. ACG itself was never really... that's the American Comics Group. They were the publisher of this. They were never really over the top in terms of gore or shock, but they were a really decent publisher, and they had some outstanding artists work for them during this run. Cool T-Rex cover. Some devils. This is probably one of the higher grade copies I've gotten in my collection of this run anyway. I think this one has like a story in it like similar to Who Goes There or The Thing. I think I bought this from World's Finest in Washington State back in the 90s. It's a weird little werewolf cover. Just, yeah, some really cool atmospheric covers here like this. I've got a dupe of this one if anyone's interested. Disclaimer, it does have a sticker on the front of it. Frankenstein monster cover. So for the record, it is 2021. Think about how long it took me to piece this together over the years. So there's the first 29 books, folks. And we're about halfway through the run. Here's Adventures in the Unknown number 30. And this is a good point to tell you that this is the very first Precode horror book I ever bought. My grandpa, rest in peace, he was a great guy. He took me to a used bookstore on the west side of Hamilton, Ohio. Probably, I'm thinking it was 1993. And I picked this up just because I was, I was already a comic book collector, but I didn't know anything about Precode horror. I just liked horror, and at that point I'd really been like a Conan collector, but I had finished my Conan run. And it was time to branch out, and I'd read horror comics as a kid. So I picked that issue up, took it home, was like, man, this book seems different. I started getting out my Overstreet. There's a cool spider cover. and discovered this thing called Precode Horror, which, you know, led me into all the other Precode titles. Woo! Technical difficulties. And I have to say there was probably about a 10-year span where I, you know, after I got married and started having kids, could not afford, literally for 10 years, I did not buy a Precode Horror comic. So if anyone else with, you know, nowadays the bankroll would be especially important, wanted to set out and complete this run, it is possible, but God, for me, I was so happy to finally get the last issue I needed. You know, it's been quite the journey, and some of these are so beat, but you know what? A lot of collecting I did on a budget, right? I mean, don't we all collect on a budget, right? I mean, unless you're independently wealthy, we all have some kind of budget. Mine, for a long time, was pretty low. Another cool spider cover. We start getting into the 3D True Vision issues with this one. Really cool. It's kind of a gimmicky process they used. I liked this cover. I think this was the first True Vision book I ever bought. Like, paid $28 for it. You'll never ever see that again. There's the robots, quote-unquote, innuendo cover. This was the last one I needed. There were a couple copies sitting around on eBay for a while, but the two dealers were price pushing on this one. And so I waited for a decent, affordable copy to pop up. It finally did. And after, you know, all these years, I finally completed the collection, and here is 61, the final issue. A shout out to my friend Sean Rude, who contacted me one day and said, hey man, Adventures into the Unknown 61 is on eBay. You know, that's probably the hardest one to find. And I said, yeah, you know, man, I haven't been buying Precode in a while. And he's like, well, you know, check it out. You know, and at that point, you know, I've been really into bronze for a long time because it was more affordable. And I did pick this up, and it got me back into Precode collecting. So yeah, shout out to Sean Rude. Thanks, buddy. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that. And have a great day. Later, everyone.